The silence of space shattered as the massive Zorn vessel emerged from hyperspace, its obsidian hull reflecting the distant starlight like a nightmare-given form. Spanning nearly 20 kilometers, the ship dwarfed everything humanity had ever constructed. Its arrival near the outer solar system sensors triggered a global alert that raced through Earth's defense networks faster than a thought. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood motionless in the central command hub of the orbital defense station, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. Years of military training and strategic simulations had prepared her for countless scenarios, but nothing could have truly readied her for this moment. The alien ship hung in space like an immovable mountain, a testament to technological advancement that made human engineering look like child's play. Around her, the command center buzzed with controlled tension. Technicians worked with practiced efficiency, their fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Communication specialists attempted to decode the incoming alien transmissions, a cacophony of complex signal patterns that defied immediate understanding. "Signal analysis complete," announced Dr. Sarah Chen, the lead communication specialist. Her voice carried a mixture of professional calm and barely contained excitement. "Their transmission is structured, but unlike any communication protocol we've ever encountered. It's simultaneously a demand and a declaration." The main screen flickered, revealing a partially translated message. The words appeared in fragments, revealing the alien perspective with chilling precision. "Identify human civilization. Technological classification. Primitive. Direct immediate surrender. Resistance futile." Elena's lips curved into a subtle smile. Primitive. The word echoed in her mind, not as an insult, but as an opportunity. Throughout human history, those who were underestimated had always found ways to surprise their opponents. "Prepare defensive protocols," she commanded, "but do not approach with aggression. We're going to show them exactly what primitive means." The orbital defense station was more than a military installation. It represented humanity's collective technological achievement, a network of interconnected systems that could adapt, communicate, and respond with unprecedented speed. Unlike the rigid hierarchical structures of most advanced civilizations, human technology thrived on flexibility and collaborative intelligence. Dr. Chen continued analyzing the transmission. Their communication suggests a highly structured societal framework. Every message is part of a predetermined protocol. They're leaving no room for nuance or unexpected response. Another technician, Marcus Rodriguez, Elena's younger brother, highlighted something on the side display. "Look at the transmission pattern. It's designed to intimidate, but it's also revealing their own limitations. They expect a specific type of response." The alien ship remained motionless, a silent threat against the backdrop of stars. Its presence spoke of centuries of galactic conquest, of civilizations crushed beneath its technological superiority. The Zorn had swept through countless star systems, their arrival synonymous with absolute submission. But humanity was different. Elena activated the Global Communication Network, a system that connected every human research facility, military installation, and scientific outpost. Within milliseconds, a unified response began to take shape, not a panicked reaction, but a calculated, collective strategy. "Prepare first contact response," she said quietly, but not the response they expect. The orbital defense systems hummed with potential energy. Quantum communication networks flickered to life, creating a web of information that spread across the solar system faster than light. Satellites adjusted their positions, defense satellites powered up their advanced targeting systems, and research facilities began rapid analysis of the alien transmission. What the Zorn saw as a simple colonization mission would become something entirely unexpected. Dr. Chen looked up from her console, a glint of determination in her eyes. "They're waiting for our response. Should we send the standard diplomatic protocol?" Elena shook her head. "No, we're going to send them something they've never seen before. Outside the station's reinforced windows, the alien ship remained a silent monument to technological might. But within the human defense network, something was stirring, a potential that the Zorn could never have anticipated. First Contact was about to become something entirely different. The research complex stood as a testament to human potential, a sprawling network of laboratories that defied traditional architectural boundaries. Here, in the heart of the Global Scientific Research Center, Dr. Marcus Chen discovered something that would change everything. Scattered across massive holographic tables were fragments of alien technology recovered from the initial encounter. Each piece seemed to pulse with an alien intelligence, complex geometric patterns etched into surfaces that appeared to shift and change when viewed from different angles. Most scientists would have approached with caution, decades of careful study mapped out in methodical research proposals. Dr. Chen was different. "We don't have decades," he muttered, his fingers dancing across multiple interface screens. Young researchers around him moved with a synchronized energy, each bringing a unique perspective to the most challenging puzzle humanity had ever encountered. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now leading the technological response team, watched from the observation deck. Her military background had taught her that innovation was the truest form of defense. The alien technology before them was not just a potential weapon, but a key to understanding an entirely different approach to scientific development. A young programmer named Sophia Lee approached Dr. Chen, her tablet displaying a complex array of signal patterns. "Look at this," she said, her voice barely containing her excitement. "The communication networks we intercepted. They're not just transmission systems. They're almost like living networks." The breakthrough came from an unexpected combination of disciplines. A quantum physicist working alongside a neural network specialist noticed something remarkable. The alien communication systems operated on principles that were simultaneously rigid and organic. They followed strict protocols but contained inherent adaptive capabilities that suggested a form of collective intelligence. "It's like they've created technology that thinks," Dr. Chen explained to the assembled research team. "But not in the way we understand thinking. Their systems don't just process information. They anticipate, they predict, they evolve." Most research teams would have been overwhelmed. The alien technology represented centuries of advancement beyond human understanding. But humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to learn, to adapt, to transform the impossible into the probable. Sophia's breakthrough came during a late-night session. While analyzing the intercepted communication patterns, she noticed something most would have missed. The alien network had a fundamental rhythm, a predictable pattern of information flow that could be understood, manipulated, and ultimately controlled. "It's not about matching their technology," Dr. Chen told the team. "It's about understanding the principles behind it." Workshops sprung up across the global research network. Quantum computing experts worked alongside xenolinguists. Neural network specialists collaborated with quantum physicists. Each discipline brought a unique perspective, creating a collaborative approach that was fundamentally different from the hierarchical research models of previous generations. Dr. Rodriguez moved between research teams, her military background providing a strategic overview. She understood that this was more than a scientific endeavor. It was humanity's first true test of survival against a technologically superior civilization. The quantum communication prototype emerged from weeks of collaborative research. It was nothing like the alien technology they had studied. Where the Zorn systems were rigid and predictable, the human version was fluid, adaptive, capable of rapid reconfiguration. "We're not trying to copy their technology," Dr. Chen explained during a global broadcast. "We're creating something entirely new." The prototype looked deceptively simple, a compact device that seemed almost primitive compared to the complex alien systems. But within its circuits lay a revolutionary approach to information processing. It could adapt, learn, and reconfigure itself in milliseconds. Sophia's discovery became the cornerstone of the new communication system. By understanding the rhythmic patterns of alien transmission, humans could do more than intercept. They could manipulate, redirect, and ultimately control the information flow. This isn't just about defense, Dr. Rodriguez told the research team. This is about showing them that humanity is more than they understand. As the first successful tests of the new communication system were completed, something shifted in the global perception. This was no longer about survival. This was about demonstrating the true potential of human innovation. The Zorn had believed humanity to be primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In research laboratories, military command centers, and communication hubs across the planet, a new understanding was taking shape. Humanity would not just survive, they would transform the very understanding of technological potential. The strategy room was unlike any military planning center in human history. Massive holographic displays tracked the intricate social structures of the Zorn collective. Each connection pointed a delicate thread of political and social influence. Dr. Rebecca Nakamura stood at the center of this intelligence web, her fingers tracing the complex relationships that held the alien civilization together. Intelligence isn't about information, she told her team of analysts, researchers, and strategic experts. It's about understanding the story behind the data. Years of anthropological research, diplomatic studies, and advanced psychological analysis had prepared humanity for this moment. The Zorn believed their civilization was an impenetrable monolith, a perfectly structured society that had conquered countless worlds. They were wrong. Every civilization has its fractures. The human team knew this as a fundamental truth. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Michael Chen, a linguistic anthropologist, had spent months analyzing the intercepted Zorn communications. What appeared to be a unified language system was actually a complex network of subtle dialects, each carrying undertones of regional differences, suppressed cultural identities, and hidden social tensions. "Look here," he said, highlighting a series of communication patterns. "These aren't just words. They're expressions of unresolved cultural conflicts." The strategy was multi-layered. Human intelligence teams began crafting messages that would target the specific fault lines within the Zorn collective. Each communication was a precision instrument, designed to create doubt, highlight internal contradictions, and expose the fragile nature of their seemingly unified society. Elena Rodriguez oversaw the operation, her military background providing a strategic framework for what was essentially a new form of warfare. Psychological operations had existed for centuries, but this was something entirely different, a holistic approach that combined deep cultural understanding with advanced communication technologies. The first targeted communications were subtle. Messages embedded with carefully constructed linguistic patterns began to infiltrate Zorn communication networks. These were not simple propaganda pieces, but complex narrative constructs that played on deep-seated social tensions. In one region of Zorn space, a message subtly highlighted the economic disparities between core worlds and peripheral colonies. In another, communication suggested the potential for cultural renaissance among marginalized population groups. Each message was a carefully crafted narrative designed to create cognitive dissonance within the alien society. Dr. Nakamura explained the approach to her team. "We're not trying to destroy their civilization. We're helping them see the contradictions within their own system." The quantum communication networks developed in the previous research phase proved crucial. Unlike traditional communication systems, these could adapt, learn, and modify their approach in real time. Each response from the Zorn collective provided new data, allowing human strategists to refine their approach with unprecedented speed. Sophia Lee, the programmer who had been instrumental in developing the communication breakthrough, now worked on creating adaptive narrative algorithms. These weren't just messages. They were living, evolving communication systems that could respond to and modify themselves based on the Zorn's reactions. "It's like a conversation," she explained, "but one where we're always 3 steps ahead." The intelligence team tracked the results carefully. Small changes began to appear in Zorn communication patterns, subtle shifts in language, slight modifications in hierarchical communications, barely perceptible tensions in official broadcasts. Most impressive was how the human team maintained ethical boundaries. This was not about destruction, but about creating opportunities for change. Each communication carried an underlying message of potential cooperation, of alternative paths to societal development. Elena Rodriguez understood the profound nature of their approach. "We're offering them a mirror," she told her team. "A chance to see themselves differently." Weeks turned into months. The Zorn Collective began to show signs of internal strain. Communication networks that once seemed monolithic now displayed hairline fractures. Regional governors began to question central authority. Cultural groups long suppressed started to find voices of subtle resistance. It was not invasion. It was not conquest. It was transformation. The human team had discovered something profound. True change comes not from external force, but from helping a system understand its own internal contradictions. As another carefully crafted message entered the Zorn communication network, Dr. Nakamura allowed herself a small smile. The real war was not being fought with weapons, but with understanding. Commander Jack Harper studied the star map, his fingers tracing the complex network of subjugated worlds within the Zorn Collective. Each pinpoint of light represented not just a location, but a civilization waiting to be understood. The mission before him was unlike any military operation in human history. "We're not going in as conquerors," he told his diverse team of diplomats, scientists, and strategic specialists. "We're going in as partners." The first contact teams were carefully selected. Each member brought a unique perspective. Linguists who could decode subtle communication nuances, cultural anthropologists who understood the delicate art of building trust, engineers who could offer technological solutions to generations of oppression. Their first target was the Viridian Cluster, a region of space containing 3 planets that had been under Zorn control for over 3 centuries. Preliminary intelligence suggested a rich, complex culture that had been systematically suppressed, its technological and cultural potential deliberately restricted. Dr. Elena Rodriguez prepared the initial communication package. It was more than a message. It was an invitation to reimagine possibility. The communication burst traveled through carefully developed quantum networks, bypassing traditional Zorn communication barriers. When it reached the Viridian worlds, it carried something unprecedented. A comprehensive database of technological solutions, cultural preservation resources, and most importantly, a genuine offer of collaboration. On the planet Virid Prime, in a hidden communication hub buried beneath centuries of Zorn occupation, a group of resistance leaders gathered. They had long since given up hope of external assistance. The message that arrived was unlike anything they had ever received. "It's not just technology," whispered Kara Sol, the lead communication specialist for the Viridian Resistance. "It's an understanding." The human communication package contained more than technical information. It included detailed historical analyses of how occupied civilizations had successfully reclaimed their cultural identity. It offered technological solutions to ecological challenges that had plagued the Viridian worlds for generations. Most importantly, it presented a model of cooperation that was fundamentally different from the Zorn's hierarchical control. Commander Harper's team had spent months preparing. They understood that true liberation was not about military conquest, but about creating possibilities. Small strike teams began to make contact. These were not military units in the traditional sense, but hybrid groups of diplomats, engineers, cultural specialists, and strategic advisors. Each team approached with a singular mission: to listen, to understand, to offer genuine partnership. On the mining world of Krill, human specialists discovered a civilization with advanced mineral processing capabilities that had been deliberately suppressed by Zorn leadership. The initial contact revealed a people whose technological potential had been ruthlessly contained. Dr. Sarah Chen led the initial contact team. "We're not here to save you," she told the Krellian leaders. "We're here to help you save yourselves." The approach was revolutionary. Instead of presenting human technology as superior, the teams offered collaborative development. Quantum communication networks were shared, not as a gift, but as a starting point for mutual technological exchange. Ecological restoration techniques developed on Earth were presented as collaborative opportunities. Each successful contact created a network of potential allies. The Viridians shared communication technologies with the Krellians. Another subjugated world, the aquatic civilization of the Moran Seas, began to see possibilities of resistance they had never considered. Commander Harper understood the profound nature of their mission. This was not about building an alliance against the Zorn. This was about creating a new model of galactic cooperation. Weeks turned into months. The network of contacted worlds began to grow. Each civilization brought its unique perspective, its hidden potential. The Zorn had believed these worlds to be nothing more than resources to be extracted. Humanity saw them as potential partners in a larger galactic community. The resistance was no longer isolated. Communication networks began to link the previously suppressed worlds. Technological exchanges happened with unprecedented speed. Cultural preservation projects began to revive traditions that had been centuries dormant. As another message was prepared for transmission, Commander Harper looked at his team. They were not soldiers in the traditional sense. They were architects of a new possibility. The real revolution was not about defeating an enemy. It was about helping civilizations rediscover their own potential. The Orion Nebula became more than a location. It transformed into the crucible of galactic destiny. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the command deck of the lead human battle group, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that mapped the approaching Zorn fleet. Thousands of alien vessels stretched across the starscape, a metallic constellation that seemed to devour space itself. Most military commanders would have felt terror. Elena felt something entirely different. Anticipation. "Prepare adaptive network protocol," she commanded quietly. The human fleet looked impossibly small. Where the Zorn possessed massive battleships that could obliterate entire planetary systems, the human vessels appeared almost fragile. But appearances could be profoundly misleading. Dr. Marcus Chen's quantum communication network hummed with potential energy. Hundreds of research facilities across human-controlled space were simultaneously connected, creating a living, breathing intelligence network that extended far beyond the physical limitations of the battle fleet. The first wave of Zorn attacks came with predictable precision. Massive energy weapons unleashed destruction that had crushed countless civilizations. But something was different this time. The human ships moved with an impossible fluidity, not through traditional evasive maneuvers, but through a synchronized dance that seemed to defy conventional understanding of spatial mechanics. Each vessel was more than a weapon. It was part of a collective intelligence. Sophia Lee, the brilliant programmer who had been instrumental in developing the adaptive communication systems, watched from a research station. Her algorithms were being tested in real time, transforming the entire human fleet into a single breathing organism of technological potential. "They're reading the attack patterns," she whispered to her team. "Not just predicting, actively reshaping the battlefield." Drone swarms emerged from human vessels, not as separate units, but as extensions of a collective intelligence. Where traditional military doctrine suggested centralized control, these drones operated with an autonomy that was both terrifying and beautiful. They moved like a school of fish, like a flock of birds, adapting instantaneously to the complex dynamics of battle. The Zorn commanders watched in growing confusion. Their military doctrine, perfected over centuries of conquest, suddenly seemed obsolete. The human fleet didn't fight like any civilization they had encountered. There was no rigid formation, no predictable response pattern. It was as if the entire human force was a single living system. Dr. Sarah Chen's communication disruption protocols came into play. Quantum encrypted signals began to interfere with Zorn communication networks, creating pockets of information uncertainty that spread like a virus through their command structures. "We're not just fighting," Admiral Rodriguez explained to her command team. "We're having a conversation they can't understand." The battle transformed from a traditional conflict into something entirely new. Human vessels used the Zorn's own technological advantages against them. Captured energy signatures were immediately analyzed, with adaptive countermeasures generated in milliseconds. Each Zorn attack was met not with simple defense, but with a response that revealed the fundamental limitations of their military thinking. Smaller human vessels began to exploit microscopic vulnerabilities in the massive Zorn battleships. Where traditional warfare would have focused on direct confrontation, these attacks were surgical, precise, revealing the complex weaknesses in the alien fleet's defensive systems. Commander Jack Harper coordinated the Allied forces, not just human ships, but vessels from the liberated worlds that had joined the resistance. Each brought its unique technological perspective, creating a truly diverse fighting force that was greater than the sum of its parts. As the battle progressed, something profound became clear. This was more than a military engagement. It was a demonstration of a fundamentally different approach to existence. The Zorn fleet began to fracture, not through traditional damage, but through a systematic breakdown of their collective intelligence. Communication networks collapsed. Tactical systems became increasingly erratic. The rigid hierarchy that had served them for centuries suddenly became their greatest weakness. 12 hours into the battle, the impossible happened. The human-led alliance had not just survived. They had transformed the very understanding of galactic conflict. When the final Zorn communications went silent, it wasn't through destruction. It was through a complete reimagining of what conflict could mean. The Orion Nebula fell silent, but a new understanding of possibility had just been born. The first tremors of revolution began in the most unexpected places. On the resource-rich planet of Krell Prime, deep within the industrial sectors controlled by the Zorn Collective, a communication burst changed everything. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't an invasion force. It was an idea, carefully crafted, precisely transmitted, impossible to ignore. Aria Vasquez, the lead human strategic communications specialist, watched the data streams with intense concentration. Months of careful preparation had led to this moment. The messages they had been sending weren't simple propaganda. They were intricate narratives designed to highlight the fundamental contradictions within the Zorn societal structure. "It's about creating possibility," she explained to her team. "Not forcing change, but revealing the potential for change." The Zorn had believed their civilization was monolithic, a perfect system of control that had survived centuries of galactic expansion. They were wrong. On 100 different worlds, simultaneously, suppressed populations began to see their reality differently. The communication networks developed by human specialists created channels of understanding that bypassed traditional Zorn information controls. Each message was a precisely crafted instrument, designed to resonate with specific cultural memories, hidden aspirations, and long-suppressed cultural identities. Dr. Marcus Chen tracked the communication patterns. "Look," he said, pointing to a complex holographic display. "It's not about destroying their system. It's about helping them understand their own potential." The first signs of revolt were subtle. Communication patterns shifted. Bureaucratic communications became less rigid. Information flow began to develop unexpected channels. On worlds that had been under Zorn control for generations, long-suppressed cultural practices began to resurface. The Viridian Resistance, which had initially contacted human specialists, played a crucial role. They understood their own history in ways the Zorn never could. Their communication specialists began to create networks that connected previously isolated populations. Commander Jack Harper oversaw the strategic approach. "We're not conquering," he reminded his team. "We're creating possibilities." On the mining world of Krell, workers who had been nothing more than resources began to organize. Communication technologies shared by human specialists allowed them to connect in ways that had been impossible under Zorn control. They weren't just sharing information, they were rebuilding their collective identity. The Zorn leadership watched in growing horror as their carefully constructed system began to fracture. Communication networks that had once been perfectly controlled began to develop unexpected variations. Regional governors started to question central authority. Cultural groups long suppressed found voices of subtle resistance. Dr. Sarah Chen analyzed the communication patterns. "It's like watching a complex organism rediscover its own potential," she explained. We're not forcing change. We're creating the conditions for natural transformation. The revolution was not violent. It was not a military conquest. It was a profound reimagining of possibility. On worlds across the Zorn Collective, populations began to share stories that had been suppressed for generations. Cultural practices long forbidden began to resurface. Educational networks developed that were not controlled by central authority, but by local communities. Elena Rodriguez understood the profound nature of their approach. This is about helping them see themselves differently, she told her strategic team. The human-developed communication networks proved crucial. Quantum encryption allowed for communication channels that were impossible to completely control. Information began to flow in ways the Zorn had never anticipated. Months of careful strategic communication began to bear fruit. The Zorn leadership found themselves facing something they had never encountered, a population that was reimagining its own potential. The most powerful weapon was not a physical force. It was an idea. The idea that things could be different. As another carefully crafted message entered the Zorn communication network, the strategic team watched with a sense of profound possibility. They were not destroying the civilization. They were helping a system understand its own potential for transformation. The real revolution was not about conquest. It was about understanding. And in that understanding, everything was about to change. The Zorn homeworld loomed like a monument to centuries of galactic conquest. Its surface was a metallic expanse of interconnected megastructures, a testament to a civilization that had believed itself invincible. Admiral Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic display, her team assembled from the most brilliant minds humanity had cultivated. This isn't about destruction, she reminded her command team. This is about transformation. The final approach was unlike any military operation in galactic history. Human vessels moved with a fluidity that defied traditional combat strategies. They were not a fleet in the conventional sense, but a living, breathing network of intelligence. Each ship was both an individual unit and part of a greater collective consciousness. Dr. Marcus Chen's quantum communication network hummed with potential energy. Months of careful preparation had led to this moment. The attack would be simultaneously physical, digital, and psychological. The first wave of engagement began not with weapons, but with information. Precisely crafted communication bursts penetrated the Zorn's most secure networks. These were not simple transmissions, but complex narrative constructs designed to create fundamental cognitive dissonance within the alien civilization's leadership. Sophia Lee, the brilliant communication specialist, watched her algorithms come to life. We're not just breaking their systems, she explained to her team. We're helping them see the limitations of their own perspective. Across the Zorn homeworld, communication networks began to fragment. Centuries of carefully maintained control started to dissolve. The rigid hierarchical structure that had defined Zorn society for generations suddenly became its greatest vulnerability. Commander Jack Harper coordinated the Allied forces, a diverse collection of liberated worlds that had joined the human-led resistance. Each brought its unique technological and cultural perspective. What appeared to be a human-led operation was actually a collaborative effort of civilizations long suppressed by Zorn control. The physical battle was almost an afterthought. Precision drone swarms moved with impossible coordination, exploiting microscopic vulnerabilities in the Zorn defensive systems. These were not traditional weapons, but adaptive intelligence platforms that could reconfigure themselves instantaneously. Dr. Sarah Chen's communication disruption protocols created pockets of information uncertainty that spread through the Zorn command structures like a virus. Military communication channels became increasingly erratic. Defensive systems began to work against themselves. We're having a conversation they can't understand, Admiral Rodriguez noted, watching the complex dance of technological engagement. The most powerful attacks were not physical. They were narrative. Carefully crafted communication bursts began to reveal the fundamental contradictions within Zorn society. Centuries of suppressed cultural memories, hidden technological potential, and systemic limitations were brought into sharp focus. On the surface of the Zorn homeworld, Populations that had been nothing more than resources began to see themselves differently. Communication networks developed by human specialists created channels of understanding that bypassed traditional control mechanisms. The Zorn leadership watched in growing horror as their carefully constructed civilization began to fracture. It wasn't a military defeat. It was a complete reimagining of possibility. Quantum encrypted signals interfered with central command structures. Defensive systems became increasingly confused. The rigid hierarchy that had defined Zorn society for generations suddenly became its greatest weakness. 12 hours into the operation, something profound became clear. This was more than a military engagement. It was a demonstration of a fundamentally different approach to existence. The final blow was not a weapon, but an invitation. A comprehensive communication package that offered a new model of galactic cooperation. It wasn't a demand for surrender, but a genuine opportunity for transformation. As Zorn communication networks began to collapse, it wasn't through destruction. It was through a complete reimagining of what civilization could mean. Admiral Rodriguez watched the final moments of engagement. This was not a conquest. This was an opportunity. The Zorn homeworld fell silent, but a new understanding of possibility had just been born. Humanity had not defeated an enemy. They had helped a civilization see its own potential. The gathering was unlike any diplomatic conference in galactic history. Representatives from over 60 different civilizations filled the massive circular chamber, a structure built from materials that symbolized collaborative engineering. At the center stood Elena Rodriguez, no longer just a military leader, but an architect of a new galactic understanding. "We are not here to create an empire," she told the assembled delegates. "We are here to create a partnership." The chamber itself was a testament to the journey. Constructed in the neutral space between former Zorn territories, it incorporated technological contributions from every participating civilization. Viridian crystal communication arrays stood alongside human quantum network interfaces. Krellian adaptive material structures blended with the ecological restoration technologies developed by the Moran aquatic civilization. Dr. Marcus Chen presented the foundational documents of the new galactic collaborative network. It was not a traditional treaty, but a living framework for mutual development. Each civilization would contribute its unique perspective, its technological innovations, its cultural insights. The transformation had been profound. Where the Zorn had seen conquered worlds as resources to be extracted, this new model saw each civilization as a unique contributor to a larger collective potential. Sophia Lee, now leading the Communication Innovation Division, explained the core principle. "We're creating a network, not a hierarchy," she told the assembled delegates. "Every voice matters. Every perspective has value." The economic models developed were revolutionary. Instead of competitive resource extraction, the new system focused on collaborative development. Civilizations that had been isolated for generations now shared technological innovations, cultural insights, and collective problem-solving approaches. Commander Jack Harper oversaw the initial stages of collaborative defense. The network was not about military might, but about collective security. Each civilization would contribute its unique defensive capabilities, creating a system of mutual protection that was fundamentally different from the Zorn's conquests. Dr. Sarah Chen led the cultural preservation and exchange programs. Worlds that had been on the brink of losing their cultural identities now found themselves in a renaissance of rediscovery. Educational networks allowed for unprecedented cultural exchange, breaking down the barriers that had existed for generations. The first major collaborative project addressed a critical challenge facing multiple civilizations: sustainable energy development. The Krellian mining expertise combined with human quantum energy research and Viridian ecological management created solutions that no single civilization could have developed alone. "This is not about erasing differences," Elena Rodriguez explained during the opening session. "This is about celebrating them." The communication networks developed during the conflict became the foundation for a new type of galactic interaction. Quantum encrypted channels allowed for unprecedented levels of transparent cooperation. Information flowed freely, but with robust protections for individual and collective cultural sovereignty. Economic models transformed. Where the Zorn had seen resources as something to be conquered, the new collaborative network saw potential for mutual growth. Civilizations that had been isolated for generations began to share technological innovations, cultural insights, and collective problem-solving approaches. The first decade saw remarkable transformations. Worlds that had been environmental wastelands began to recover. Technologies that had been suppressed for generations found new applications. Cultural practices long forgotten began to resurface and evolve. It was not a perfect system. Challenges remained. But for the first time in galactic history, those challenges would be faced collectively. The chamber buzzed with a sense of possibility. Young representatives from different civilizations worked together on collaborative research projects. Communication technologies allowed for unprecedented levels of cultural exchange. What had once been seen as differences became sources of collective strength. Elena Rodriguez looked out over the assembled delegates. The journey had been complex, challenging, often seemingly impossible. But they had done more than defeat an enemy. They had reimagined what civilization could mean. "We are not conquerors," she said quietly. "We are partners." As the first collaborative session began, something profound hung in the air. This was more than a new political arrangement. This was a new way of existing. The galaxy watched, and for the first time in generations, it was filled with hope.